Back in the early 2000s, if you were to ask who the best midfielders in the world were, you would have heard the name Michael Ballack. One of Germany's greatest footballers of all time, certainly the greatest German footballer of his generation, as well as overall one of the most versatile and complete midfielders in an era where football was full of all-time great talent. But as good as he was in his time, his career has largely been forgotten and will always be seen by those who remember as a cursed and unfortunate one, with some others even calling him one of the biggest losers in football. So today, we're gonna look back at his career and see why exactly he's remembered as being one of the most cursed footballers of all time. Unlike many great German footballers today who were brought up in the nation's most prestigious footballing academies, Michael Ballack was relatively unknown during his time as a youngster. In fact, he was never even developed by a Bundesliga youth team or Bundesliga 2 team. No, you have to go all the way back to Germany's 4th division tier, to a club called Chemnitzer FC, to understand just where Michael Ballack came up from. And if you've never heard of them, I wouldn't blame you at all. But at the relatively late age, by today's standards, of 19 years old, his performances for Chemnitzer would see just enough potential for him to be pushed all the way up to Bundesliga, where Kaiserslautern decided to give the young Ballack a chance. On paper, Ballack wasn't anything special. He wasn't the presence he had on the midfield. And I don't mean commanding in quite the same way as players like Xavi or Pirlo dominated the midfield in their style. Ballack was a physically dominant specimen on the midfield. Imagine Erling Haaland bullying defenders. Instead, it was Ballack bullying the entire midfield. He could have also played any position on the midfield. In fact, he started off as a sweeper, but would move higher and higher from defensive midfielder all the way to an attacking mid at parts of his career. Standing at nearly 6'3" or 189 centimeters, weighing nearly 180 pounds or around 80 kilograms, Ballack was a strong, physical, and most importantly, relentlessly aggressive player. He was like a horse on the pitch, constantly pressing and on the move, almost as if he never got tired. So even when he played higher up in the midfield, the man was an excellent defender. And when you match his pressing with his stamina and frame, he was truly a menace for the opposition. The man would bully other midfielders even at a younger age. Don't get me wrong, aside from his physicality, Ballack was also an incredibly skilled player. He had the brains and the skill to match the brawn. Ballack was also an amazing passer with pinpoint accuracy and vision, knowing how to move the ball well and how to efficiently start the attack. But when you look at Ballack, he might not come across as a technical and intelligent player. He was absolutely a brilliant playmaker. I'd compare his passing to that of a prime Sergio Busquets, rarely making mistakes and always being calm. But Ballack could play like an offensive Busquets, if that makes sense. His long distance passing and ground balls were especially good, kind of like how KDB plays long balls today. And of course, he had an incredibly powerful shot. What's more impressive is that he could do it with both feet. The man basically had a 5-star weak foot and could easily score from well outside the box, which he's done many times throughout his career. Of course, during set pieces, Ballack was especially dangerous, as he's probably one of the best header goal scorers of all time in his position. And the man was also pretty good at free kicks. Most importantly, Ballack was a natural captain who remained calm and was able to display his authority and leadership, gaining respect from his teammates even at a young age. Kaiserslautern brought Ballack in the 1997-98 season. The year they signed Ballack, they won the Bundesliga title. His stats weren't amazing, but his impact could definitely be felt on the pitch and was a huge factor in his team's overall success both defensively and offensively. In just 2 seasons with the club, the young Ballack went from 4th division gem worth only a few thousand to being worth 4.1 million euros by the age of 22. Just picture it like this. You're a Bundesliga veteran playing in Germany's highest level for your entire career. Then all of a sudden, a 4th division nobody comes along and starts dominating you on the pitch, both physically and with technical skill. That was Michael Ballack. Bayern Leverkusen would make a move for the 23-year-old Ballack in 1999, where his manager would move him up into an attacking midfield position. And this was really when Ballack would start to become beating out Bayern Munich for the title. However, this was the start of Ballack's string of unfortunate events. Opposing striker within his team's box, Ballack accidentally scored an own goal. This would eventually result in a loss, ending up in 2nd place and losing another title to Bayern after a few years of genuinely contend glory towards the end of the season, but Ballack and his squad would lose the match 2-1 thanks to no other than Zinedine Zidane. But it didn't end there. It was so bad that the club was nicknamed Bayern Leverkusen, infamously remembered for winning the almost treble. But it only gets worse. In that same summer in the 2002 World Cup, Germany were not the favorites in Europe to perform and make it all the way deep into the tournament. But Michael Ballack was the reason this German team even had a fighting chance that year. He quite literally put the team on his back and willed them all the way to the final. In the quarterfinal, Ballack would score the only goal against the United States to advance them to the semifinal. There, they found themselves matched up against South Korea. However, Ballack would receive a second consecutive yellow card, suspending Germany's best player during the biggest football match in the world. Ballack would have to sit and watch as his team lost 2-0 to Ronaldo and Brazil. He would be included in the World Cup team of the tournament and be named the German Footballer of the Year for the first time in his career, as well as being the UEFA Midfielder of the Year in 2002. But the man had probably the unluckiest year of any footballer ever, helping his team reach 4 finals while being the most important player, but failing to win a single one of them. After the World Cup, Ballack was seen as the best German footballer in the world, as well as one of the best midfielders in the game. So of course, it was about time that German giants Bayern Munich had finally signed him, because after all, it's customary for them to sign their country's best talents, and they win a lot. So don't feel too bad for the man quite yet. In only his first year with the mighty Bayern, Ballack would finally win another Bundesliga title, as well as his first German Cup trophy. In fact, in his 4 seasons with Bayern, he'd win the league title and German Cup for 3 consecutive years, as well as being named the 2003 and 2005 German Footballer of the Year. Ballack was great at Bayern Munich, maintaining his image as one of the best and most dominant overall midfielders in the world, scoring 62 goals and having 40 assists in 157 matches, which you might not think is that amazing based on today's standards. And you have to remember, the man played both offensively and defensively, with incredible work rate, so his contributions to the club were much more significant than his already great stats alone. But when it came time for the 2006 World Cup, despite the fact that it was held in Germany with Ballack being named Germany's captain for the first time, they would once again end up disappointed as they finished in 3rd place. Ballack would be named man of the match in 2 games and was included in the team of the tournament, with his country praising him for his efforts. But he had always, till this very day, felt that he let his country down. After being unable to win yet again, he wanted to make a final push to a major silverware before his career came to an end. And he felt like the best place to do this was at Chelsea. On his first season with the club, they would win the FA Cup and the EFL Cup, with Ballack scoring 8 goals and having 8 assists, but narrowly failing to win the Premier League title as they finished in 2nd place. The next season would probably be the 2nd most unlucky run for a club in history. It was almost as if Ballack's cursed year in Leverkusen had followed him all the way to Chelsea as well. Firstly, Ballack would begin the season with an injury that prevented him from playing almost half the matches he would usually appear in. Chelsea would start their season with a Community Shield loss to Man United. But it's no big deal, right? There are still more silverware to be won. Throughout the season, Chelsea were struggling a bit until Ballack was once again fit. He had even captained the squad for a short amount of time and to help them fight for the top of the league standings with multiple man of the match performances. In fact, he scored a game-winning goal against Man United to put them on level for the Premier League title race just 2 match days before the end of the season. But they would lose once more to Man United by just 2 points, finishing the league in 2nd place once again. And for the League Cup, they would lose 1-2 against Tottenham. But most tragically of all, they faced their bitter season rivals Man United, who had already beat them in 2 trophies prior during no other than the Champions League final. They would lose 5-6 on penalties once more. Ballack and Chelsea would lose an astounding 4 finals this year, but sadly, it only gets worse. That following summer, for the 2008 Euro tournament, Ballack would captain Germany one last time in hopes of bringing his country to a major international title. This was easily his best chance, as Germany had quite a powerful squad. They would battle it out with Portugal and Turkey to make it all the way to the final. And as good as Germany was, their problem was that they had to challenge the mighty Spain. And of course, they would lose to a single goal by Fernando Torres, ending Ballack's season with a total of 5 finals and 0 trophies. This was really Ballack's final chance to ever do this again, as he was getting older and way past his prime. To be completely honest, I don't even know which was worse for Ballack, his 2001-2002 run with Leverkusen or his 2007-2008 run with Chelsea. He would eventually win the Premier League title in his last season for Chelsea, but I've never felt so bad for a player. Ballack was honestly an amazing talent and leader, especially for his country. The man had 42 goals and 19 assists in 98 appearances for Germany, and although he never won, he was really loved by his countrymen for how hard he played, especially for their country. And what's most unfortunate is that Ballack will mostly be remembered for his seemingly cursed and unlucky career instead of the unique talent he was. I mean, how many players do you know can play the midfield in every position like he did and still control the game while being as good of a leader as he was? It's crazy to think that if he had won those finals, he would have been known as the greatest German footballer of all time. But I just want to end this video with one last quote from Ballack. Titles can be overestimated. Of course, Lothar Matthäus will always be associated with the 1990 World Cup, but not everyone remembers right away what titles Johan Cruyff or Luis Figo won. People are more likely to remember the way they played and how important they were to their teams. I just hope that people will remember me as a special football player.